Hey guys, it's Jim Bounds at Motorhome Rehab Ranch over on Patreon, and this is kind of an interesting one. We're going to do a podcast this morning. I've got a good friend of mine, Matthew. Say hey.
Hello, hello.
Hey man, this is we're on the way to breakfast, and we're going to talk about why he's here today in Orlando, which I call Mordor.
Kind of accurate.
Yeah, and hey, listen, if you hear a lot of background noise and stuff, we're in the truck, so kind of blended out a little bit. So you're here in Mordor. What are you doing here?
Well, if anybody's seen my video about driving cross country,
Yeah. How do they find your video? Tell me about that.
well, I've got a YouTube channel. I'm newish to GMCs. I've been doing this for like a year or two now. Well, I haven't really worked on the motorhome for a year, but I'm getting back into it. And so for about a year, I was really renovating it and starting with the mechanicals and calling you all the time and getting advice. I've got a background. Everybody can figure it out on the video. So it's
cool.
It's Industrious Pursuits is the YouTube channel, and I had a video that I made about the trip, like current location, like where we moved to, which is in the Midwest. So I drove from the Pacific Northwest, and I overloaded the motorhome by about 2,500 pounds. So rated at 12,000 GVWR, loaded it to 14.5, which I don't recommend anybody do, but I didn't have many options.
They'll do it. I mean, they'll do it. Hey, you do what you got to do, right?
Do what you got to do. And so the way out, it was a shakedown. It was a heck of a shakedown run. I was trying to see what was going to happen, and the problem that I had over and over again was relating to fuel. Now, you've sat down with me and given me some advice for how to work with the current tanks and get them to be mostly reliable. But like you say, and I'm just repeating your words, basically, these are 45-year-old vehicles. They were designed to last like 50 years.
50.
They were designed to last like what, 10, 15 years.
Well, GM was proud. They did a film. The president of GM said they were proud that this vehicle was designed to have a 14-year lifespan.
Yeah. Here we are 50 years later.
Yeah. So these fuel tanks are issues, and probably everybody's listening because there's only a couple of options so far. The sixes.
Yeah.
So probably everybody's listening has got the same problem, and that's why I wanted this to have this conversation today.
Well, so I was very tempted to just work on the original tanks, but like some of the problems as I understand them, you got a single little hose. It's not really a hose, but you got a single spigot between the two tanks, and it draws fuel from the rear tank or the front tank?
The main tank's the rear tank. Yeah.
The rear tank.
Yeah.
So and it takes a while for the fuel to trickle through that single hole. And the reason they had to do that in two tanks instead of just one giant tank was because there's a cross member, which is like a structural cross member between the two frame rails.
They only had two spots between the cross members
to stick a hole through to marry the two tanks together.
Right.
And
it was a messed up system.
Yeah, it looks like the more I understand it, the more I'm thinking they gave this job to the intern, and everything else about these is engineered so well, and not
everyone misunderstands when they first start these that they have two 25-gallon fuel tanks, and you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. You say, well, no difference. But fuel injection does not understand two cavities.
Huh.
It just doesn't understand
where
it wants to pull out of and put back in the same cavity.
Right.
Okay? So, that's the problem. But the main problem with these metal fuel tanks is ethanol.
Yeah.
And they're turning into the stalactites.
Yeah, it's really a holistic thing. Again, as I understand it, like I had no problems with my carburetor coming across the country. I was surprised. I've had carbureted trucks before. Yeah. You go up and over the Rockies and they sputter, and then you're down low and you're actually running rich, and like, it's like, but the carburetor must be a great carburetor that I had, because I didn't have any tech. It ran just fine. But it was designed for 1960 when they designed these things, and like you said, they weren't using ethanol in the gas, and so now you've got all the problems that come with ethanol. So it's like a holistic thing. If you're going to do the tanks, you got to do the fuel injection too, and you got to do the new lines. You got to do the body lift so that you can run the lines over the frame. The more over the years, the more that we did the tanks, the more I found it was you had to do. Yeah.
Because I did a fuel tank fuel lines for a guy one time. He lived in Tampa, right? Headed home. About 6 weeks later, he called and says, "I can't. It won't pull out of the main tank."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, dang, bring it back." He got up in there and found that the hoses were crushed on the top of the tank.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, what's the deal there?" "Well, the tanks are connected to the frame, and the body's sitting on the frame. So when the body drops, it goes toward the tank,
Right.
and it crushes the lines.
Right.
Didn't get one of the lines right in that valley. It came out, crushed it.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
There's a
crushed
little
it.
groove.
You got to keep those lines in that groove on the original tank, or it'll absolutely crush.
Yeah.
But even with them in the lines are going over the frame, and it still crushes if the body drops. So found out after that happening that the body pads were a deal. That I got into that and tried to
Hockey
issue
pucks
that.
for the win.
Hockey pucks, man. And we were cutting them in half, right?
Yep.
Well, now we're just putting a whole hockey puck in.
Yeah. What's a little half inch?
A half inch actually gives you more clearance, right? Because think about that cutout in the engine cover.
Right.
They had to do that because something happened and the body drooped and hit the frame. And what are you going to do, Bubba?
But it's a holistic solution. So I think you got to do your chipmunking solution to the front. That kind of helps lift that front, because that front end's kind of cantilevered out there.
Oh yeah.
You got to do all the things.
Those things.
They got to work all together. You can't just do one fix.
Well, tell me about you're down here today. What to get a tank?
Well, they're really
Talk
large.
about what they're doing.
I would love to ship it and not to have had to drive all the way down here myself. I had 4. It was a great trip. I had 4 things I needed to do. I had to wait a couple more days for the tanks, but that's the problem, is shipping them. So got to get down here somehow to get them. But yeah, so I got to go see them. They're being made at like a professional aluminum welder shop that makes aluminum boats,
marine applications.
Yeah, and other fuel tanks for other boats.
Right.
Mostly I saw them. They were making like swamp boats with the big fans out the back.
Yeah.
So these guys are expert. They do this all day, every day. So it's not just Bubba and Scooter, as you say.
Bubba and Scooter have talents too,
They do, but they don't. Maybe professional doesn't describe their talents. So these guys are professional, and so I was impressed. I got to see the tank mostly made, and then the hang up was the bungs, which apparently have to be lathed up special. And
what he's doing now. In the past, all the tanks had bar valves.
Okay.
Put a clamp on it. Best you can do. Well, in trying to redesign the tank, the latest configuration that Jason came up with. By the way, Jason's the one that came up with all this tank. I didn't do it.
Right.
Okay. I mean, he really grabbed up this thing. So the last unit doesn't have any barb fittings.
Okay.
They're using thread-in flare fittings.
Right.
AN6s, AN10s, stuff like that. So this thing is a serious tank. It's been through 8 different iterations.
And back to what I was talking about, the reason they had to put the hose connecting the 2 tanks is because that structural cross member's in the way.
Right.
So what Jason did, or I don't know who had the idea,
was to
turn the tank into the structural member. So internal is an aluminum cross member. So you cut the cross member, the steel one, and you leave a little bit of it out, apparently, from my understanding, and you're going to bolt that tank, which is now going to replace the structure. And other people, I think, are just cutting the cross member out and maybe getting away without it. But
well, the first, like I said, we've had 8 iterations. The first several we made, which worked fine.
Yeah.
Cut the cross member out and then left the top to keep it, to hold it in, and then put another L channel on the bottom, which worked out just fine.
How much did that lower the frame, though? The L channel stuck down.
1 inch.
1 inch. That's not too bad.
It was a 1 inch L.
Yeah.
Good solid structure. But see, the problem with that was the installation, because you have to insulate the tank from the frame.
Yeah.
Okay. And we had all these brackets and stuff going underneath and plates and everything. So what Jason did is he integrated it all into the tank. You see what I mean? So the installation, literally, there's a flange at the front and the back that has holes in it, and it bolts into the front and back cross members that are still there. And then the one in the middle, you leave a stub out from the original cross member.
Yep.
And you would bolt this thing to that stub, insulated, of course. Okay, it's got to have insulation. So all the points that it's mounted to are, one, insulated, and
so we
two,
don't get the galvanic corrosion. Right?
That's correct. And you've also added back the structural integrity of the frame.
Right.
That's the thing that's cool. It's not like it's something magic. See, a gas tank, what's it supposed to do? Hold gas.
Yeah.
Hold gas.
Got one job. You have one job in life.
Hold gas, baby. Pump gas, let gas go in it, and let gas come out. And every tank that we built did that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The problem was, first we were trying to figure out how to not have it slosh because it's a big,
Well, yeah,
tank.
let's talk about that, because that's why this problem exists. They couldn't do their normal gas tank solution because they got, what is it, a 4-inch frame down underneath the
Yeah,
the whole thing about front wheel drive motorhome is that they can lower that whole back deck as close to the road as they can get. It's like hardly a step up, and so they got to squeeze that gas tank into that tiny little distance between the floor and the road, and so they're just trying to hide it within the frame rails itself. Can't protrude up, can't protrude down, and so they got this very flat, wide tank, and the fuel's very much going to slosh.
It's just like a shallow lake.
Right. Yeah.
When you get a wind up, you're gonna have some huge. Some guys say, "Damn, that's a little lake there. Why is this huge waves?" Well, that's exactly what happens in that tank, and it doesn't matter what you do. Now, you could pay gazillion bucks and have a fuel cell made.
With the sponges in them, like the race car drivers do, or the race.
Yeah. You could do that. Okay, but that's big bucks.
How long do those sponges last anyway?
I don't know. I never had a sponge in my gas tank. I'm sorry, But I mean, everybody tries to solve something, and it always creates other issues.
Yeah.
And if the issue is sloshing the tank, okay, a shallow tank, well, then get away from that. The real fix to that is the forced fuel system. If you're going to fuel injection, to having an accumulator tank. Now, I understand here recently, Sniper's come up with a accumulator system of some sort. Okay, but the one that I know of is the Phytech, and the reason that we know of it because we had problems with it. We were running Phytech early.
Yeah.
And we were having problems with that slosh issue. I mean, if you have less than half a tank of gas and you go up a long hill, like the Eagle Pass or something like that.
Yeah.
Mont Eagle.
Yeah.
I
don't remember the name of it.
I ran out of gas on Mont Eagle.
It was somewhere in Montana or Wyoming.
Well, this was somewhere. It's
a long uphill hill.
Well, my problem is it's north of the Mason-Dixon line. Anything north of I don't know where it is. I'm kind of lost. I'm a flatlander. I can't help it. But anyway, if you have less than a half tank of gas and you're going up a tall hill, you could run out of gas with a carburetor. And see, the thing is, the carburetor will sput, and you pull over, and it'll get some more gas in the bowl, and it'll take off.
Yeah.
Fuel injection, when it loses fuel pressure, it says, "Up, I guess we got to turn off."
Yeah, right. It's computerized,
and it turns off. So you're pulling a big ass hill, and your motor turns off.
Yeah, it's scary.
Bad juju,
Yeah.
So that's why they came up with the accumulator tank system. And with the accumulator tank system, now you're still
okay. So let's tell everybody it's like a little square tank, and we're mounting on the driver's side, back behind the front.
Well, they're finding different places. Right now, it's on the
and so it's like a 2-gallon tank, a 1-gallon tank.
It's a 1-gallon tank.
And so your main the fuel pumps, because fuel pumps on a carburetor, they pull the fuel from the lines, but the fuel pump on a fuel injection system is this little circular thing that sits in the tank itself.
It's a pusher.
Pushes the fuel. So we're pushing the fuel with lower pressure down the line to the accumulator tank. And the accumulator tank has its own pump inside of it. Is that right?
Yeah, the accumulator tank has the high pressure pump submerged, just like all tanks, fuel pumps are today. It's submerged in a half gallon of fuel, and that's where it pulls the high pressure to the throttle body, and it's a dead end.
It's not a throttle body though. Are these
no,
are throttle body?
It's called throttle body. It's a body.
Oh, it has to be, right?
It's a throttle body.
It's right there.
It's called a throttle body.
No, yeah. For some reason, I was thinking, for everybody, throttle body fuel injection mimics a carburetor. It's a single point of atomization.
Exactly.
Whereas, like, on when cars that come from the factory with fuel injection have an injector into each cylinder. And that would be ideal, but my God, how would you
to be honest with you,
to do that?
To be honest with you, found out that throttle body actually has more volume of fuel. Because if you inject it right at the valve, which is cool,
right?
Totally computer controlled, valve controlled, everything else. But if you inject it there, that's the fuel you have. On a throttle body with an intake manifold, you have all that volume of air sitting behind the valve. As soon as you open it, it goes. It's like a toilet,
right?
Okay, so they found in our situation, because I started with direct port, electromotive Tech 2. It was.
Oh, you can do that, huh?
Oh yeah, I did. Well, we had 30-pound Ford injectors.
So how did you?
We drilled the intake.
Okay.
Literally glued in the bungs. It was insane. Had rails on the top and all this. It had a crank fired trigger. In other words, you had to have a sensor on there, no distributor and all that shit. Well, the problem with that thing was it was so complicated, and if you did get it running, thank God, and if anything ever changed, it just took a dump.
Wow, just
you had to get a book out, and call some dude. I had to take it to North Carolina, to Virginia, just to get it tuned.
Right. So I mean, companies, this is kind of a golden age in working on cars. Everybody can get their laptop out. Like, it was just so hard. You had to have like a PhD in this stuff, 10, 15 years ago. So, yeah.
It's gotten so much easier now. And see, that's the new stuff.
But even though it's gotten easier, this is still sort of like the whole this is just now kind of coming online. 40, 50 years old motorhomes, and we're just getting some of these solutions which were never available. Yeah. So this is a really exciting time to be rebuilding.
Well, it really is, because it's new technology. It's active thinking, real time.
Yeah.
Fuel injection, just like a new car.
Right.
All right. They're finally, for many years, the software for that was proprietary to OEM.
Right. Yeah.
They couldn't make it. Well, when they did, Phytech was one of the first ones, and this is not a Phytech ad. It's a active, real-time thinking fuel injection ad.
And I do have to give a little pushback there, because I know a lot of people really like the Holly kit.
Yeah, that's fine.
Better than the Phytech one.
Both of them work.
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
They're the same concept.
Yeah.
The concept is what you want. I don't care about the hardware. I will tell you, we put in 2 of the snipers.
No, I've never even heard of that one.
Well, yeah, it actually is a good one. And, anything's good when you get through the learning curve.
Right.
Nobody that has a bunch of money is going to invest in a company that makes a piece of garbage.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's all you.
Yeah.
It's what you can figure out how to do.
We call that user error.
Right.
RTFM.
Yeah. But, we've done enough of the Phytech that we know what not to do. And we did 2 of the snipers. Had a hell of a time on the first one. Did not enjoy the second one because we didn't enjoy the first one.
Right.
And then, everybody, I'm never going to do that again. Well, if they kept doing it, it would probably work. But we've got so many years in the understanding of the Phytech that, Jason's real good at it, and they're good with us.
So let me steer this in a slight direction. As a customer, because that's what I am, a glorified customer. I've got my own skill set and everything, but So I'm not in this business. And if I ever came up with a solution that nobody else came up with, I'd probably find somebody else to make it and sell it, right? So I was thinking, when I first got into this, minimum effort to having a classic coach. And I found this guy. He's got a website, the GMC RV, and I actually reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, because he had gone and done everything, almost frame off, off the rails, and he didn't have all the years of experience. Experience meaning you messed it up and you had to redo it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So he did a darn good job, and his motorhome is the most impressive one that I've seen, and I'm trying to to outdo him now, right?
Yeah, you were telling me about
But
that.
it wasn't my goal in the beginning. And I reached out to him and said, I'm just trying to look, what is this bare minimum sequence of events that I can do to get a reliable motorhome down the road? Maybe I can renovate the inside, and I get to put my own touch on the the decor. And that was and I think a lot of people get into these with that goal, which is a fine goal, but it's the holistic thing. Like I said, this is the most impressive thing that Detroit ever made. It's the Tesla of its time. The engineers loved it to death. They were fighting tooth and nail with each other from Chevrolet to
Right.
GM. They all wanted this project so badly.
They saw it a new thing.
Yeah,
it was a 20-year project.
It was the coolest thing that they'd ever seen. All the engineers wanted it, and they've never, because it got shut down. The bean counters were in Detroit, and think of all the terrible styling of cars that came out of the '80s.
Yeah.
And this is '78. This is right when they were killing amazing styling.
You know what? When they killed the GMC, you know what the first vehicle was that came off the assembly line?
The pickup truck.
S10 pickup.
And it doubled their profits.
Yeah.
But they were still profitable with the GMC motor. They should have built a new building for the pickup trucks and kept making the motorhomes, but they didn't. They were just focused on money. And so it was a soulless decision that killed this machine. And because of that, nobody else had the wherewithal. Say you got Airstream, which everybody knows Airstream, but it's a small shop. It's not a major automobile. They can't do it from the ground up. They've got to put a tag axle on there.
Well, the GMC was a huge project.
It was a huge project,
and no one was really big enough to Wheat Motor Company tried.
They were okay.
Yeah, they tried,
but they weren't big enough.
They weren't big enough,
and so that's why we rebuild these machines, because they never will, they never did, and they never will make them again. It's you can DIY things. Airstream, in a way, it's kind of like a DIY because they're a smaller shop. Wheaton Motorhome's a smaller shop. They're trying to do with and you got massive tooling, and then you got to go back to the ground zero to redesign. When you hit some problem, halfway through the design process, you hit some problem, you got to go all the way back. And they can't do that at the smaller. So they're so special. The platforms are so special. So they're worth it to. And I wasn't there. I didn't buy that line when I first started. I was like, I just want this. It's so cool. I do love it, but I just want not bare minimum. I want a minimum effort to a viable thing that I can go camping with my family.
You're not unusual.
Yeah.
Everybody's listening to us that right now.
Yeah.
They're going, yeah. Well, how do you do it? What's the combination?
But it's worth it to save these things. And to spend, I think it's a realistic. You say $30,000, $50,000 thing. When you're done with it, you can spend $5,000 on the machine. It's going to be so rough. It's going to take you, another 25 or to 45.
See, people they say, I'm looking for a deal. I've been looking years for a deal. I dig that, but the reality is at this age, if you spend less than $10,000 on it. To be honest with you, that's the small investment.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the small investment. And what's it going to need? Don't vacillate. I mean, don't worry about, because you know what's going to need? Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
I bought mine. It looked like a Survivor running and driving. It smelled like rat poop because the rat's nest is buried itself under the bathroom. But I thought, hey, I could just it runs. I drove it down. It seemed like it was fun. But it turns out if these things haven't been done, they all need to be done, and it's worth doing. And I didn't understand that when I got into it. And yes, you can do those minimal things. You can piecemeal it if you want. You can do the minimal things. You can go take it on some small trips, and then it'll start to let you down a little bit, and you'll be like, I want to fix this.
See, that's the thing. The co-op, 25 years it was there, trying to fix them.
Yeah, just trying to
fix them. Trying to patch them.
Get them out the door.
The interiors were like a wrap. It's like you go into a kitchen, But
that's so funny. They're gluing new veneer on all the cabinets.
Yeah. But what happened was the cabinets fell apart. What's the half-life of particle board? There's nothing to glue to. So now you got to build new ones. Guess what? That's going to be really expensive, but that's just an estimate.
Yeah.
See, and things got more and more and more expensive, and we proved that they need everything. What Jason's going to do now
is everything.
Okay, he's going to build frames.
Yep.
Running frames.
You can put your own coach on top of it.
And put your coach on top.
Yep.
Now you turn back all the clocks.
Yeah.
All the clocks.
Oh, they're brand new machines. Yeah.
And now it's going to work like a new machine, and that's the only way. You can't piecemeal it. I had to close. I had to close the business because we just couldn't do it that way.
You got it. Yeah, it's 2023. Everything's changing, and these are just they're the most incredible machine that Detroit. I'll say it again, but but they're You can't. They're not. The stock is not viable. It looks viable. It seems viable. It's not viable. You have to resto mod these things, at least mechanically.
Well, listen,
keep the coach looking original on top if you want,
but
mechanically
it's got to go 60, 65 miles an hour. It's got to get out there and run with the big boys.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not going to do that.
I got passed on my trip down here. I got passed by a full-on, like, massive motorhome towing a trailer that was another 3 feet taller than, with 3 axles. The dude was doing 80 miles per hour down the freeway. So that rig passed me, and the wind's blowing me all over. Like, you don't want to be going so slow.
That's why I had to get rid of that Harley.
Yeah.
You know, the only time you could ride it is at 85 miles an hour down I-95, and I don't want to go 85 miles an hour on a motorcycle.
That's the speed of the so.
You know, so well, look, let's get back to what we were going to talk about.
The gas tanks,
we're talking about gas tanks.
The reason I brought it is they're part of the holistic solution. You can't just, and you can throw it in there, you can run a carburetor, and it solves your gas problem, but that's not, you got to do, at least you got to do the gas tanks.
You have to have a clean fuel delivery.
And the fuel,
You have a clean fuel delivery. If it's a steel tank, the ethanol is alcohol and water. Okay? So the water separates, it evaporates, it condenses in this big fuel tank, big wide fuel tank with a huge roof on it. Mm-hmm. So all that water condenses and causes surface rust. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then the alcohol, then you slosh it around. The alcohol cleans it up bigger than a whistle.
Yep.
Throws it all in the filters.
Yep.
Okay, there's a 5-micron filter in the carburetor. You need to carry some of them.
Yep. I've replaced it already. Yeah.
But also, you've got to have I would put a 10-micron. See, most inline filters are 100 microns. Okay? You need to have no more than 10 microns going in to that 5-micron filter.
Yeah.
Because the 10-micron filter is taking all the junk out.
And the 5-micron is tiny, so if you've really got a lot of junk in your machine,
it's going to clog up fast.
Replacing it every 100 miles.
It's going to clog up fast. So and a 100-micron filter lets too much crap through because the 5-micron will clog up fast. Mm-hmm. So you want a 10-micron to stop all that rust in those metal tanks. And here's something else we figured out: filters. What happens when you put paper in water for a long time?
Oh yeah, it just
turns to shit.
Yeah.
Well, all the filters are paper filters.
Yeah.
And they got fuel in them for a year.
They just disintegrate.
We started seeing, before we started putting in a 10-micron filter, we started finding paper in the injectors, clogging the injectors. Yeah, blowing the filters out.
Wow.
Yeah.
The pressure,
Yeah, the pressure. So what we did was we put a Phytech this is, again, it's not an ad.
Right.
I want a 10-micron stainless steel mesh cleanable filter.
Yeah.
Okay? And clean that crap. And you can see it's a glass thing, so you can see the flow.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to keep the metal tanks, I want a 10-micron glass filter.
Don't keep them though. These are all half measures.
Well, actually,
they always lead to other problems.
I was going to ask
you
the
first time.
I was going to ask you before we hit the breakfast to stick your head under my coach. There's a huge metal 10-micron filter that Jason found. Okay. And maybe when we get back, maybe I'll type it onto the
Google.
On this thing.
Figure it out.
On this. No, I mean all I got to do is look at the number.
Right.
So maybe with this podcast, I'll type it into the
description.
Into the description, guys, so you can see what But it's a big metal fuel injection filter that's 10 microns.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful.
And so you put that on there with fuel injection, and that solved all of the injector clog problems.
Yeah, but you still got the sloshing problem. Yeah.
Sloshing problem is another one, and that's what the forced fuel or the accumulator's for. Yeah. So you can't solve it with one thing. You can make a tank to hold the fuel.
And these rigs, through the years, because I didn't have the problem with the tanks overheating, but I've seen other people posting blogs about putting heat shielding under their tanks.
All kinds of problems.
So, and the new tanks solve all these. It's just don't even have to just
vapor lock. And then you got the problem with the relationship to two tanks. You got all that electrical crap under there that is going to fail.
Yeah.
That fuel solenoid.
Two different.
There's 56 feet of vent hose under there alone, man. Yeah. So that whole fuel delivery system, the main part of it is this aluminum tank. Why aluminum? So it doesn't rust. Why one? Because fuel injection likes that. You know?
Yep.
And the original 2 tanks were like 50 gallons. I think Jason's got it like 65 gallons now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's in one cavity. The fuel injection can pull out of and put back in, the return, into the one cavity.
Yep.
You say, well, that's a lot of fuel in there. Well, you know, when the fuel comes back in, okay, it warms up. Now, in the new system with the forced fuel system, it's at normal fuel pressure. It doesn't heat up.
Right.
But if you have a fuel injection system with a high pressure pump,
Yeah.
it pressures it up high, then it drops it to about 46 psi for the injectors, and then it dumps all this fuel back into the tank. So, well, that's cool. But the fuel's hot.
Right.
When you pressurize it,
yeah.
it heats it, and then it goes into the tank, and it warms up the whole tank.
But we've just got that tiny little tank that's getting a constant flow of cooler fuel from the main tank.
That's right.
You're alleviating that problem.
And that one tank, the fuel is not heating up into the one tank.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about pulling the hot fuel.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about the slosh.
Wait, are you returning? So you're pulling from the pressure tank at the front, and then you're returning to the main tank?
What you're doing is you're pulling out of the new tank
Right.
into the pressure tank.
Right.
Overflow from there. Now that goes up to, no more than 6 or 8 psi.
Right.
You can even use the mechanical fuel pump.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that pumps up 6, 7 psi into the half gallon, and then it dumps out and goes back to the fuel tank.
Okay.
The high pressure only goes by about 2 or 3 feet from the submerged fuel pump to the throttle body, and that pressure stays.
Okay. Okay.
That doesn't return.
Gotcha.
Okay, the return is low pressure.
Got it.
And that's what it needs to be. The high pressure return, like what I have in mind right now, I don't have a force fuel.
Right.
I get all the shit. I don't get all the stuff.
Well, you got the cobbler's children have their shoes coach.
Don't ever buy my coach. It's just it's a mess. But mine right now, I'm dumping the fuel. I'm doing everything wrong,
Yeah.
and the thing still works.
Yeah.
It's not like it won't work without that, but it's better
Yeah.
doing it the other way.
Yeah. And in the end, we want to get
So
these things
so
done
what's
and
happening with
enjoy
this
our
fuel
coaches.
tank? We're at breakfast this morning. What's your day going to look like?
Well, if it all goes well, they got one done yesterday, and I need 2 because we love these GMCs, and there's another guy who knew I was going to
Well,
get this.
you're driving one to somebody, right?
Right. So
you got a deal.
So I
out,
picked
right?
up mine, and then I got to go another 5 hours past my house to drive it to him.
You the man.
Right?
You
You can't ship these. That's the biggest problem. Everybody should have one of these tanks, but getting them to where we are in the country, or even overseas, I don't know. They're too big for a pallet.
Well, we shipped a couple of them. What we did was I even got pictures somewhere. It ended up looking like something that a rocket was on. It was this. We did 2 pallets on the bottom, 2 pallets on the top, and then hooked them together.
Wow, with like plywood or something.
Yeah, and talking about heavy.
Yeah.
That's just an estimate.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
I mean, it probably costs more to ship the thing.
It was about the same
Well,
price to ship it.
It's currently, I think they're like $3,000. The tanks,
Is it that much?
That's what he's charging.
Well,
with after COVID and the workers.
I got to back away from that because, man, I was embarrassed to charge $40 an hour when I opened in '97.
It's just hard. And as a customer and as a cheapskate, I saw how expensive things are with these GMCs, and it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But this is the right. So I couldn't do this, and I think I'm pretty clever, and I try to do DIY a lot of things, but I couldn't possibly. No, there's no way. And so I'm just paying the price, and it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, look, let's go get some breakfast. I'm
do it.
dying. And guys that have been listening, I hope this was interesting. This is kind of a first attempt here.
Audio podcast, no
people,
video.
Yeah, people could have probably already cut off. We could
I'm
probably
sure
fart
we
on
lost
here.
most of them.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking around. Whoever said
Thanks for hanging out. And if you're interested in the fuel tank, give me a call. I'll get you hooked up with Jason. You can reach out to him. They're building production of 5 at a time. They have a back order of like 20. Okay, so and remember, the shipping sucks, and he's in Orlando, Mordor.
Yeah.
So but like I said, you got to do something about this, and this is the best solution so far. I'd love to make a plastic tank.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Oh yeah, cubic dollars. I mean, I don't have that.
Yeah, and then those are going to be large too. How are you going to ship them?
Jeez, oh yeah, yeah.
They'll be lighter weight, but
Yeah, dimensional weight. Like if you ship a holding tank,
yeah.
comes out of California.
Yeah.
Yeah, $250.
Not too bad.
The tank's $350.
Yeah. Doubling the price easy, yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, let's get some breakfast, and you guys get on and. So and remember, the shipping sucks, and he's in Orlando, Mordor.
Yeah.
So. But like I said, you got to do something about this, and this is the best solution so far. I'd love to make a plastic tank.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Oh yeah, cubic dollars. I mean, I don't have that.
Yeah, and then those are going to be large too. How are you going to ship them?
Jeez, oh yeah, yeah.
They'll be lighter weight, but
Yeah, dimensional weight. Like if you ship a holding tank,
yeah.
comes out of California.
Yeah.
Yeah, $250.
Not too bad.
The tank's $350.
Yeah. Doubling the price easy, yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, let's get some breakfast, and you guys get on and go wrap your fish or whatever you're doing today, the rest of the day. Thank you for hanging out with us, and talk to you later. Bye bye.